The scream of the wind was the only warning. Dust devils swirled across the barren plains as Wade Colton squinted against the coming storm. His weathered hand rested on the worn grip of his Colt single-action army, the blued steel as familiar as his own heartbeat. At 45, Wade had seen enough blood to last 3 lifetimes. The war had taken his youth. The years since had taken everything else. The first shot kicked up dirt 6 inches from his boot. Wade didn't flinch. He'd smelled ambush on the wind before the trigger was ever pulled. In one fluid motion, he drew and fired twice. The first bullet caught the shooter in the chest, dropping him from his perch behind a rock outcropping. The second shot silenced a curse from the left, followed by the heavy thud of a body hitting hard ground. "That's two," Wade muttered, his voice sandpaper rough. "Where's the third?" The answering gunshot clipped his hat, sending it spiraling into the dust. The third man was running now, a dark silhouette vanishing into the swirling brown haze of the coming sandstorm. Wade tracked him with practiced eyes, noticing the uneven gait, the way his left arm hung limp. Hit then, bleeding. The storm descended like God's own fury, but Wade Colton had spent too many years as a Confederate scout to lose a blood trail, even in weather that would send the devil himself seeking shelter. He followed the crimson droplets like breadcrumbs, one hand shielding his eyes, the other never far from his holster. Each drop told a story. Wide spatter meant the runner was breathing hard. Diagonal marks showed he was listing to one side, growing weaker. The trail led to an old cabin, one Wade knew all too well. 10 years ago, it had been his home. 10 years ago, it had burned with his wife and daughter still inside, their screams forever etched into his nightmares. He hadn't set foot near it since. Now it stood before him, a haunted relic of his past, partially rebuilt by unknown hands. Inside, he found not the third gunman, but a woman. She lay crumpled on the floor, blood seeping through her torn dress, golden hair matted with sweat and dirt. Half conscious, she flinched when his shadow fell across her face. "Don't," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the howling wind. "Please don't. I'm not here to hurt you," Wade said, holstering his pistol and kneeling beside her. Blood seeped from a bullet wound in her side. "Who did this to you?" "Ray," she mumbled, eyes fluttering. "Ray Reeves. He wanted the map to Maxwell's gold." Wade froze, the name striking him like a physical blow. Reeves. General Reeves had commanded the Union forces at Shiloh, where Wade had earned his nickname, the Ghost, for appearing seemingly from nowhere to pick off officers, and for his uncanny ability to vanish when the fighting stopped. The general's younger brother Ray had sworn vengeance. Apparently, he was still collecting. "Stay with me," Wade said, lifting the woman gently. "What's your name?" "Sarah," she whispered. "Sarah Mitchell." By the time Wade carried Sarah through the door of his ranch house, night had fallen. The Broken Horn wasn't much. A sturdy cabin, a barn badly in need of repair, a windmill that creaked with every turn. But it was his. For now, at least, until the bank took it. He laid Sarah on his bed and worked quickly. The bullet had gone clean through, missing vital organs. Lucky. Wade had patched up worse wounds during the war, sometimes with nothing but a knife, whiskey, and strips of cloth torn from his own shirt. His fingers moved with practiced precision, cleaning the wound with whiskey that made Sarah gasp, then packing it with dried yarrow he kept for such emergencies. By the light of a coal oil lamp, he stitched the entry and exit wounds with catgut thread and a fine needle he traded for in Tucson. As he worked, Sarah drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling about a map, about her father, about gold in an abandoned mine. When he finally finished bandaging her wound, she grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "The men with Ray," she gasped. "Did you?" "Two of them won't be coming back," Wade said flatly. "The third one's wounded." A bitter smile touched her lips. "Good. she whispered and passed out again. Dawn broke with merciful clarity after the sandstorm. Wade stood on his porch, coffee in hand, watching the sun creep over the eastern hills. Inside, Sarah Mitchell still slept. He'd checked her wound twice during the night. No fever. Another small mercy. The sound of approaching hoofbeats set his hand drifting toward his gun. Old habits. He relaxed slightly when he recognized Sheriff Mike Logan's bay mare. "Early for social calls," Wade commented as the sheriff dismounted. "This ain't social," Mike replied grimly. "Found 2 dead men out by the crossroads. Your handiwork, I'm guessing?" Wade sipped his coffee. "They shot first," Mike nodded, unsurprised. They'd known each other 20 years, fought in the same unit during the war. "Figured as much. One of them was Jasper Wilkes, used to ride with the Reeves gang." "Ray Reeves is back," Wade confirmed. "Got a woman inside who can testify to that. He shot her, left her for dead in my old cabin." The sheriff's eyebrows rose. "Your old place? You haven't been near there in 10 years, I know." Wade cut him off. "She said something about a map. Gold in a mine. Name Maxwell mean anything to you?" "Thomas Maxwell?" The sheriff whistled low. "Mining engineer. Made a fortune during the war selling maps of mineral deposits. Found a major gold vein down south, then disappeared about 6 months back." He paused. "His daughter's been looking for him ever since. Young woman, blonde hair, about 30. Wade nodded. "That would be my guess." "Well, hell." The sheriff removed his hat, ran a hand through graying hair. "If Ray Reeves is hunting Maxwell's gold, and he knows this woman has the map," he met Wade's eyes, "he'll be coming for her, with numbers." "Let him come," Wade said, his voice gone cold as January steel. "Been too quiet around here anyway." By noon, Sarah was awake enough to eat. She sat propped against Wade's pillows, hands trembling slightly as she spooned broth into her mouth. Her eyes, Wade noticed, were the deep blue of a summer sky. "Why are you helping me?" she asked suddenly. Wade considered his answer carefully. "Ray Reeves and I have unfinished business. Has nothing to do with you." "The ghost," she said softly. Wade's hand stilled on his gun belt, which he'd been cleaning. Sarah continued, "My father spoke of you. Said a Confederate scout saved his life at Shiloh. A man the Union soldiers called the Ghost." "Your father was at Shiloh?" She nodded. "Thomas Maxwell. He wasn't a soldier. He was mapping mineral deposits for the Union. Got caught in the crossfire." Her eyes filled with tears. "Ray killed him 6 months ago for his map." Wade resumed cleaning his gun, movements precise, mechanical. "And now Ray thinks you have this map." "I do have it," Sarah replied. "Or part of it. It's here." She touched a silver locket hanging around her neck. "But it's useless without the key, which my father hid somewhere in the abandoned redemption mine." Wade's jaw tightened. "We need to get you to town. You need a proper doctor, and I need supplies if Ray's coming." The town of Redemption had seen better days. Once a bustling mining community, it now survived mostly on the cattle business and as a way station for travelers heading west. New buildings stood alongside weathered structures that had witnessed the town's glory days. The impending railroad promised revival, but progress always came with a price. As Wade helped Sarah down from his horse, he felt eyes on them from every window. News traveled fast in small towns. By now, everyone knew about the 2 dead men at the crossroads. Dr. Jenkins asked no questions as he examined Sarah's wound. "Clean work," he commented to Wade. "Steady hands." "Had practice," Wade replied simply. While the doctor changed Sarah's bandages, Wade headed to the general store. He needed ammunition, food, maybe some extra dynamite. If Ray Reeves was coming to the Broken Horn with numbers, Wade intended to even the odds. He was examining a box of .45 caliber rounds when a shadow fell across the counter. "Mr. Colton." The voice was cultured, Eastern. "What an unexpected pleasure." Wade didn't look up. "Nathan Pierce. Still foreclosing on honest ranchers?" Nathan Pierce, owner of Western Rail Bank, smiled thinly. His tailored suit and gold watch chain marked him as a man of means. "Simply business, I assure you. Nothing personal." "Never is with your kind." Pierce's smile faltered slightly. "I heard you had a guest at your ranch. A young woman?" Now Wade did look up, his gray eyes boring into Pierce's. "News travels fast." "Small towns," Pierce agreed smoothly. "I merely wondered if she might be someone I'm acquainted with." "Sarah Mitchell, perhaps?" Wade's expression remained neutral, but his mind raced. How did Pierce know Sarah? "Can't help you," he said flatly, paying for his supplies. As Wade turned to leave, Pierce added, "Mr. Colton, if you should happen to be harboring Miss Mitchell, I'd advise caution. She's not what she seems." Wade paused at the door. "Neither am I, Pierce. Remember that." Outside, Wade spotted Sheriff Logan in urgent conversation with the telegraph operator. The look on Mike's face told him everything he needed to know. "How many?" Wade asked when the sheriff approached. "7 men riding with Ray Reeves, spotted crossing the Richardson property last night." Mike kept his voice low. "They'll hit your place by sundown." Wade nodded. "Good to know." "Wade," Mike grabbed his arm, "this isn't your war anymore." The ghost of Shiloh smiled, but it never reached his eyes. "War's never over, Mike. Just changes battlefields." The sun hung low and blood red over the western horizon as Wade made final preparations. He'd positioned dynamite at strategic points around the property, set tripwires across likely approaches, and moved his best horse, a muscular chestnut gelding named Traveler, to a hidden ravine behind the house, just in case. Sarah sat at his kitchen table, cleaning an old Remington revolver he'd given her. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency. "My father taught me," she explained, catching his surprised look. "Said a woman alone needs to know how to protect herself." "Smart man," Wade commented. "He tried to be." Sarah's voice softened. "The night Ray killed him, my father told me to find you. Said you were the only man he ever met who couldn't be bought or scared." Her blue eyes met his. "Was he right?" Before Wade could answer, the first shot shattered the window. "Get down!" Wade shouted, drawing his Colt as glass exploded around them. He pushed Sarah behind the heavy oak table as bullets splintered wood and thudded into walls. "7 men," Wade said grimly, checking his weapon. "3 approaching from the south, 2 from the east, 2 holding back by the ridge to pick us off if we run." Sarah clutched her Remington. "How do you know?" Wade's smile was cold. "Because it's what I would do." The next 10 minutes dissolved into a nightmare of gunfire, smoke, and blood. Wade moved like a wraith through his own home, firing with deadly precision through windows and doorways. His first shot caught a man trying to circle around to the kitchen. The heavy .45 caliber round punched through the outlaw's chest, dropping him instantly. The second attacker went down when he triggered the tripwire Wade had set, detonating a quarter stick of dynamite that turned the approaching gunman into red mist. A third man wearing a red bandana charged the front door, firing wildly. Wade put him down with a single shot to the throat, the man's final gurgle lost in the chaos of gunfire. A fourth outlaw crashed through the back door, only to meet Sarah's Remington. Her shot caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around into Wade's line of fire. Wade didn't hesitate, his bullet finding the man's heart with unerring accuracy. "4 down," he growled, methodically reloading his Colt, brass casings tinkling against the wooden floor. But his victory was short-lived as flames erupted from the direction of the barn. Ray had set fire to the structure, and in the dry summer heat, it went up like tinder. A bullet grazed Wade's arm as he ducked behind a wall. Blood soaked his sleeve, but he barely noticed. The barn fire was spreading, threatening the house. They had minutes, not hours. "We need to move," he told Sarah. "Now." They slipped out through a back window, using the smoke as cover. Wade guided Sarah in a crouching run, keeping their silhouettes low against the blazing background. A bullet whizzed past Wade's ear as one of Ray's men spotted them from the ridge. Wade returned fire without breaking stride, satisfied by the distant cry of pain that followed. They reached the hidden ravine where Wade had concealed Traveler. The horse stood steady despite the nearby chaos, a testament to Wade's training. "Get on," Wade ordered, helping Sarah mount before swinging up behind her. He spurred Traveler forward into the gathering darkness as bullets kicked up dirt around them. Behind them, the Broken Horn Ranch. Everything Wade had built since the war burned against the darkening sky. 10 years of work, memories, and hope consumed by flames for the second time in his life. Wade's jaw tightened, but he didn't look back. Survival first. Vengeance would come later. Ray Reeves watched from the ridge, his face illuminated by the distant flames. Beside him, his remaining men shifted nervously. "They got away, boss," one said. Ray spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "Don't matter. They'll head for the mountains, and we'll be waiting." He touched the ugly scar that ran from his left eye to his jawline, a parting gift from a Confederate scout at Shiloh. The ghost can't hide forever. For 3 days, Wade and Sarah moved through the rugged mountain terrain, always alert, always watching their back trail. Wade taught her how to cover their tracks, brushing pine needles over footprints, walking on rocky surfaces that wouldn't hold impressions. He showed her how to move silently through underbrush by testing each step before committing weight, how to use the North Star in sun's position for navigation even on cloudy days. Sarah proved a quick study, her hands soon calloused from the harsh terrain, but her movements growing more confident by the hour. They made camp in a sheltered canyon beside a small stream where Wade set snares using brass wire from his ammunition kit. As Wade built a small, smokeless fire using dry pine needles and the Dakota firehole technique he'd learned from a Cheyenne scout during the war, Sarah studied him in the fading light. "You were right," she said suddenly. Wade looked up. "About what?" "When Ray attacked, you knew exactly where they'd be positioned." She hugged her knees to her chest. "You really were him, weren't you?" "The ghost." Wade fed another small branch to the fire. "That was a lifetime ago. My father said you appeared from nowhere during the battle, took out 3 Union officers who had him cornered, then disappeared into the smoke." She paused. "He said you didn't even know which side he was on. You just saw a man in trouble and acted." "I killed a lot of men during that war," Wade said flatly. "Don't make me a hero." Sarah's blue eyes reflected the firelight. "My father thought you were." Wade changed the subject. "This mine where your father hid the key, how far?" "Ghostwater Mining Camp," Sarah replied. "Abandoned after the big collapse in '68. Maybe a day's ride from here." Wade nodded. "We'll head there at first light. But you should know. Nathan Pierce asked about you in town." Sarah's face went pale. "Pierce? You're certain?" "You know him." She looked away. "He was my father's business partner. After the war, they established several mining operations together. But Pierce wanted more. Always more. When my father found the gold vein, Pierce demanded they keep it secret, mine it themselves instead of filing proper claims." "Your father refused?" Sarah nodded. "He was going to report the find to the mining authority. The next day he was shot." Her voice broke. "I always suspected Pierce was involved, but I could never prove it." Wade absorbed this new information silently. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was darker than he'd imagined. Ghostwater appeared on the horizon shortly after noon the next day. a collection of weathered buildings clinging to a mountainside like skeletal fingers. The mine entrance gaped like a black wound in the earth. As they approached cautiously, Wade noticed something odd. Tracks, he said, dismounting to examine the ground. Recent, multiple horses. Sarah scanned the abandoned structures. Someone's here. Wade drew his Colt. Stay close. They moved silently through the ghost town, past collapsed shacks and rusting equipment. Wade noted the details with a scout's precision. Fresh boot prints in the dust. A recently discarded cigarette butt still reeking of tobacco. A water barrel with evaporation marks showing it had been disturbed within days, not months. Nothing stirred, yet Wade could feel eyes on them. His instincts, the same ones that had kept him alive through 4 years of war, screamed danger. The shot came from the old assay office, the bullet kicking up dirt between Wade's boots. He shoved Sarah behind an overturned ore cart and returned fire, his bullet splintering the office doorframe. "Wade Colton," called a voice from inside the building. "I'll be damned. The rumors were true." Wade froze. He knew that voice. "Frank Turner?" A figure emerged slowly, hands raised. The man was older, gray-bearded, but Wade recognized him. Frank Turner had been Thomas Maxwell's foreman years ago. "Thought you were dead," Wade said, keeping his gun trained on the man. Frank smiled grimly. "Came close enough. What are you doing here, Colton?" Before Wade could answer, Sarah stepped out from behind the cart. "Mr. Turner, is that really you?" Frank's face went white. "Sarah? My God, girl, I thought Ray Reeves had killed you." "He tried," Sarah said. "Wade saved me." Frank lowered his hand slowly. "Then I guess I owe you thanks, Colton. I've been hiding out here since Thomas died, trying to figure out what to do next." "You worked for my father," Sarah said. "You know about the gold?" Frank nodded. "I helped him hide the key, but if you're here looking for it, we've got problems. Nathan Pierce's men have been scouting this area for days, and I spotted Ray Reeves riding in from the north this morning." As if summoned by his name, gunfire erupted from multiple directions. Bullets ricocheted off stone and metal around them. "Inside!" Wade shouted, pushing Sarah and Frank toward the assay office. They barely made it through the door before the air filled with lead. Through a broken window, Wade counted at least 5 attackers. Ray Reeves himself stood on the roof of the old general store, a rifle in his hands. The other men were strangers, hired guns most likely. "We're trapped," Frank muttered. Wade's mind raced, evaluating options, calculating angles. "Not yet, we're not," he said. "Frank, is there another way into the mine besides the main entrance?" "An old air shaft behind the blacksmith shop," Frank replied. "But it's narrow, tight fit for a man." "Perfect," Wade said. "Here's what we're going to do." The plan was simple but risky. Frank would create a diversion while Wade and Sarah made for the air shaft. Once inside the mine, they'd find the key, then use Wade's remaining dynamite to collapse the main entrance, sealing Ray and his men outside. It almost worked. Frank's diversion, setting fire to the livery stable, drew most of the gunmen. Wade and Sarah slipped out the back of the assay office and darted behind buildings until they reached the blacksmith shop. The air shaft was just as Frank had described, a narrow opening barely wide enough for Wade's shoulders. Sarah went first, squeezing through with relative ease. Wade followed, his wounded arms screaming in protest. They found themselves in a dark tunnel that smelled of damp earth and decay. Wade struck a match, revealing rough-hewn walls and rotting support beams. "The main chamber should be this way," Sarah whispered, pointing deeper into the darkness. They moved cautiously through the abandoned mine, aware that every step might trigger a collapse. The main chamber appeared suddenly, a vast open space where the mountain had been hollowed out in search of precious metal. "There," Sarah said, pointing to a small metal box embedded in the far wall. "That's where my father said he hid the key." As they crossed the chamber, A voice echoed from behind them. That's far enough. Wade turned slowly. Ray Reeves stood at the chamber entrance, a revolver aimed at Wade's chest. Blood stained Ray's left sleeve, the wound Wade had given him during the ambush. The ghost of Shiloh, Ray said, his voice dripping contempt. Not so ghostly now. It's over, Ray, Wade said evenly. You're outnumbered. Ray laughed. Am I? Your friend Frank is dead, shot trying to reach the sheriff. He gestured with his gun. And you're about to join him. Why? Sarah demanded. The gold? Is it worth all this death? Gold. Ray's laugh echoed in the chamber. Girl, this was never about gold. This is about justice. Your father was going to expose what happened during the war. What men like Pierce did. The Union officers who sold information, who profited from death. His face twisted with rage. My brother died because of men like Pierce, and your father was going to name them all. Wade's mind raced. The map isn't to gold, he realized. It leads to evidence. Ledgers, Ray confirmed. Names, dates, transactions. Everything Pierce wants, buried. He aimed the gun at Sarah. Now the locket. Hand it over. Don't do it, Sarah, Wade warned. Shut up, Ghost, Ray snapped. You don't get to give orders. Not after what you did at Shiloh. A new voice echoed through the chamber. He's right, my dear. Give me the locket. Nathan Pierce stepped from the shadows, flanked by two armed men. His immaculate suit looked bizarrely out of place in the dusty mine. Pierce, Ray growled. This wasn't the deal. Pierce smiled thinly. The deal has changed. He nodded to his men, who raised their weapons, one aimed at Ray, one at Wade. You see, Pierce continued smoothly, Mr. Reeves here has become a liability. Too emotional, too focused on revenge. He turned to Sarah. Your father was the same way, so principled, so unwilling to see reason. You killed him, Sarah whispered. Pierce shrugged. Business, my dear, nothing personal. Like burning my home? Wade asked quietly. With my wife and daughter inside? Was that business too? Pierce? The banker's smile faltered. What are you talking about? 10 years ago, Wade said, his voice dangerously calm. You needed my land for your railroad. I refused to sell. The next night, my house burned. Everyone thought it was an accident. Understanding dawned in Ray's eyes. Son of a bitch, he murmured. Pierce, you told me that was a Confederate deserter's homestead. Pierce's composure cracked. It was necessary for progress. Progress, Wade repeated, the word like poison on his tongue. He looked at Ray Reeves. Seems we have a common enemy after all. What happened next unfolded in heartbeats. Ray shifted his aim toward Pierce. One of Pierce's men fired, catching Ray in the chest. Wade drew and shot both of Pierce's gunmen before they could react. Pierce himself scrambled for cover, pulling a derringer from his coat. In the chaos, Sarah reached the metal box in the wall, wrenched it open, and removed a small key. Pierce fired his derringer, the bullet grazing Wade's temple. Blood trickled into Wade's eye as he took careful aim and put a bullet through Nathan Pierce's shoulder, spinning the banker to the ground. Don't kill him, Sarah shouted. He needs to stand trial. Ray Reeves lay dying, blood pooling beneath him. He beckoned Wade closer. My brother's badge, Ray gasped, pressing something into Wade's hand. He was a good man, not like the others. His eyes clouded. Should have known. You wouldn't burn women and children. Wade closed Ray's eyes after he passed, tucking the badge into his pocket. Some debts could never be repaid, but this at least was something. Sarah used the key from the wall safe to open her locket. Inside was a tiny map, which combined with the key's unusual teeth pattern, revealed hidden writing, coordinates, a location. My father's evidence, she said quietly. Everything Pierce wanted hidden. They bound Pierce's wound and marched him out of the mine at gunpoint. Outside, they found the sheriff and a posse arriving. Frank had reached them after all. Though shot twice in the attempt, the tough old foreman had managed to stay in his saddle long enough to bring help. The doctor said it was a miracle he survived. Stubborn old coot too mean to die, Sheriff Logan observed with gruff affection as Frank recovered in the town's small infirmary. The evidence Sarah's father had collected was damning. Meticulous ledgers showing how Pierce and others had profited from both sides during the war. The books detailed weapons shipments deliberately diverted from frontline troops to be sold at inflated prices, medical supplies stolen from field hospitals, and gold payments meant for soldiers' wages that mysteriously disappeared. There were sworn testimonies about atrocities committed for financial gain. Villages burned not for tactical advantage, but to force land sales at pennies on the dollar. Most damning were the lists of officials who could be bribed, judges, politicians, even generals with precise amounts and the favors purchased. My father died for this, Sarah said quietly, turning the pages with trembling fingers, to expose men who treated war like a business opportunity. When the federal marshals arrived 3 days later, Pierce was already confessing, hoping for leniency. There would be none. A month passed. Wade stood on the newly rebuilt porch of the Broken Horn, watching the sunset paint the western sky in blazing oranges and deep purples. The reward money for Pierce and his conspirators had been enough to pay off his banknotes and rebuild what had burned. The new barn stood solid against the horizon, twice the size of the old one. Inside the house, furniture handcrafted by Wade himself replaced what had been lost. Simple but sturdy, like the man who made it. Sarah approached carrying 2 cups of coffee. She'd changed in the past weeks, her city clothes replaced by practical riding skirts and boots, her hands now calloused from work. She'd used her portion of the reward to purchase the redemption mine and the surrounding property, intending to reopen it legitimately. Already she'd hired Frank as foreman and 10 local men as workers, revitalizing Ghostwater with honest labor and fair wages. The east shaft showed color today, she said, handing Wade a steaming cup. Frank thinks we might hit a major vein by winter. Wade nodded, the coffee rich and hot on his tongue. Good land. Always was. I've been thinking, Sarah continued, leaning against the porch railing. The mine needs protection. There are still men out there who worked with Pierce. Men who might want to silence anyone who knows what happened. She glanced sideways at Wade. I could use a partner. Someone who knows the territory. Someone who can't be bought or scared. Wade's lips quirked. Not quite a smile, but close enough. Might be I could help with that, he said, for a fair share. 30% in finals say on security matters, Sarah offered, her businessman's daughter instincts showing through. 25 and we both get a vote, Wade countered, surprising himself with how easily the negotiation came. Sarah extended her hand. Partners, then. Wade's calloused palm met hers in a firm handshake. They stood in comfortable silence after that, watching the day's last light fade. Not lovers, the wounds were still too fresh for both of them, but something more than allies. Friends, perhaps. Partners, certainly. And maybe someday, something more. I received a letter today, Sarah said eventually, from my father's lawyer in Denver. Wade raised an eyebrow. Good news? Interesting news, she corrected. Apparently my father sent him a package shortly before his death. Instructions to deliver it to me if anything happened to him. She held out an envelope. There was this note for you inside. Wade took it curiously. The handwriting was unfamiliar. The paper yellowed. To the ghost of Shiloh, if you're reading this, I'm dead, and you've helped my daughter. For that, I thank you. But our work isn't finished. The corruption goes deeper than Pierce, reaches higher than you can imagine. The railroad is just the beginning. There's one more cache of evidence. One more battle to fight. Look for the second key where blood and honor first met. Maxwell Wade folded the note carefully, tucking it into his shirt pocket. In the distance, a whistle sounded. The first train approaching the newly completed station in Redemption. Progress was coming, sure as the dawn. But so was justice. Wade checked his Colt, adjusting the gun belt around his hips. Some ghosts weren't meant to rest. Not just yet. Trouble? Sarah asked, noting his expression. Wade's weathered face creased in a rare smile. Always is, he said. But that's tomorrow's fight. The train whistle sounded again, closer now as darkness settled over the Broken Horn Ranch. Tomorrow would come soon enough.